high atop the shaking summit of Mount Sinai, wrapped in a thick cloud of glory, Moses held his breath as a voice not of this earth began to speak. For 40 days and 40 nights, the angel of the presence dictated a secret history of the world that the Western Church would later try to bury. You are about to witness the ultimate restoration of the Book of Jubilees, preserved for centuries only in the sacred highlands of Ethiopia. Today, the ancient division of the earth, the fallen watchers, and the true solar calendar are finally revealed. This lost scripture, known in the ancient GE's tongue as Moshafa Kufale, or the division, was not merely neglected, was actively targeted for erasure. While the Roman Empire and subsequent Western councils sought to streamline their spiritual narratives by casting away the deepest cosmic records, one ancient kingdom stood guard. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church refused to bow to imperial edicts. Within the stone-hewn high-altitude mountain monasteries of Ethiopia, tucked away from the reaching arms of inquisitions, scribes patiently copied these holy lines onto goatskin vellum. This was royal preservation at the cost of blood, a stubborn refusal to let the calendar of the angels be forgotten. When we look at the modern Western canon today, we must ask ourselves a challenging question. Did we lose these texts because they lacked inspiration or because they contained too much authority for earthly empires to control? To understand how the Western canon arrived at its current shape, we must examine the early church canonical shifts that occurred under the shadow of political convenience. When the Constantine decree began to consolidate the fragmented Christian movements under a singular imperial banner, diversity of thought became a threat to the state. Books containing secrets of the pre-flood world, the exact division of the earth, and the angelic rebellions were quietly labeled apocryphal or outright heretical. These lost books of Scripture did not disappear because they failed the test of truth, but because they challenged the political hierarchy of Rome. By locking away the Book of Jubilees, the architects of the canon severed our connection to the original blueprints of time and history. But is a text truly unauthentic just because a Roman emperor or an assembly of medieval bishops decided it shouldn't be read? As we open this ancient GES chronicle today, we are going to dive straight into the origins of the earth, peeling back the layers of history to reveal the sacred covenant that was locked away for over 1,500 years. Imagine standing at the base of the Mount Sinai summit, looking up as the very rocks beneath your feet begin to vibrate with a low, terrifying hum. The people of Israel stood in awe, but Moses had to step forward. He was summoned to leave the safety of the camp, separating himself from the thousands who watched from below. He walked alone into the dark, craggy heights where the physical world began to thin and dissolve into the spiritual realm. This was not a pleasant walk up a mountain path. It was a journey into the absolute presence of the Creator of the universe. For 40 days and 40 nights, Moses remained on that shaking stone summit, completely cut off from the human food and water that sustained earthly life. As he climbed higher, the cloud of the Lord descended, thick and dark like charcoal smoke, wrapping the mountaintop in a terrifying divine shroud. This cloud was not merely water vapor. It was the physical manifest glory of God, a borderland between heaven and earth. To step into that cloud was to risk instant destruction if one's spirit was not aligned with the divine will. Yet Moses pressed on, his dark bronze skin reflecting the strange golden fire that flickered within the dark mist. Let us sit with this moment for a second. We often think of Moses simply receiving the 10 Commandments on 2 stone tablets, but Jubilees tells us that something much larger was happening. The spiritual density of the revelation he experienced on the mountaintop was so intense that it required a celestial intermediary to guide his mind through the vast oceans of cosmic history. This was the moment where the eternal division of years, the secrets of the seasons, and the precise blueprint of creation were laid bare before a human witness. The cloud of the Lord served as a temple, a holy chamber where the history of the future and the past became one. Inside the thick cloud on the summit, Moses was not met with silence. The Creator commanded the angel of the presence, the supreme celestial scribe who stands closest to the throne of glory, to begin the dictation of history. This was not a vague inspiration or a dream. It was a precise, word-for-word dictation of everything that had transpired from the first day of creation to the arrival of Israel at Sinai. The angel spoke, and Moses wrote, recording the exact division of jubilees, weeks, and years. This dictation of history revealed that time is not a random, linear accident of human events. The angel illustrated the structural division of years into 49-year cycles called jubilees, subdivided into weeks of years. Every event in human history, from the fall of Adam to the division of the nations, was pre-calculated and assigned to its exact jubilee. This covenant timing operates far above human history, showing that even in the midst of exile and oppression, the Creator's calendar remains absolute and unyielding. It proves that the rise and fall of empires are not random occurrences, but are bound to a cosmic clock. I must admit my own past ignorance when it came to these heavenly stone tablets. For years, I believed the only tablets on Sinai were the 10 Commandments, but Jubilees reveals that Moses saw the ancient cosmic archives, the pre-written history of all creation. These stone archetypes contain the names of the righteous, the deeds of the wicked, and the secrets of creation itself. Unlike fragile earthly clay scrolls that decay in the dust of time, these heavenly archives are eternal and unchanging, documenting the spiritual laws that govern the universe. In our next section, we will uncover how this divine blueprint defines the precise calendar of the Sabbath, revealing how the heavens keep time. The mathematical order of the cosmos was never meant to be a mystery left to the speculation of men. In the Book of Jubilees, we trace Enoch's astronomical calendar foundations, discovering a system that aligns perfectly with the heavens. When the Creator set the stars in their courses, he established a 364-day solar cycle. This was not a rough approximation, but a mathematically complete framework that divides the year into exactly 52 weeks. By calculating the division of seasonal gates, the calendar ensures that every year begins and ends on the exact same day of the week, preventing the holy days from drifting. I remember back in 2018, when I first mapped this out on a dry erase board, looking at how the seasons fell in perfect order and realizing how chaotic our modern Gregorian system truly is by comparison. It was a moment of profound clarity, seeing that the Creator's clock has no need for human corrections or leap years. This solar cycle is anchored by the division of 4 seasons, each consisting of exactly 13 weeks, marked by key transition days. The celestial order of stars acts as a giant, unchanging cosmic clock, unaffected by human manipulation. Unlike lunar calendars that require continuous adjustments and intercalary months, the solar calendar of Jubilees shows absolute celestial stability. It is a system built on divine geometry, designed to keep humanity in sync with the heavenly courts. Reconstructing the ancient solar rhythm allows us to see how the early patriarchs lived in complete harmony with the spiritual order. It is an invitation to look up at the stars not as random lights, but as the gears of an eternal sanctuary clock ticking steadily through the ages. When we align our lives with this 364-day solar cycle, we are not just observing days, we are, step by step, walking in the footprints of the righteous lineage. This calendar was handed down to Noah after the flood to ensure the covenant vows would never be broken by timekeeping errors. Every season, every gate, and every Sabbath has its assigned place in the cosmic archives. It is a reminder that the Creator is a God of absolute order, and that His laws are written into the very fabric of the sky. By reclaiming this rhythm, we reject the confusion that has blinded the world. In the next part of our journey, we will explore how this calendar defines the sacred boundaries of the Sabbath itself, revealing the angels who keep it. Let us look at how the Sabbath was kept in the beginning. The covenant of the Sabbath is far older than the law given to Moses at Mount Sinai. Its roots are woven into the very first week of creation. According to the GE's text of Jubilees, this sacred day of rest was not created merely for man. The angels of the presence and the angels of sanctification, the 2 highest orders of heaven, were created, already keeping the Sabbath. This angelic keeping of Sabbath shows that the day of rest is a cosmic reality that existed before human feet ever walked the earth. The sanctuary order of weeks was established to mirror the heavenly liturgy, linking earthly worship directly to the eternal throne. This means the Sabbath is not a flexible, human-defined day of convenience, but a spiritual boundary of rest that must be guarded with absolute reverence. When we observe the Sabbath, we are joining in a pre-existing heavenly chorus, aligning our physical actions with the angelic orders that stand before the Creator. Contrast this deep cosmic reality with the common modern view that treats the Sabbath as a relic of ancient legalism, or a day that can be shifted at will to suit human calendars. The Book of Jubilees shatters this casual attitude, showing that the Sabbath is a sign of the eternal covenant, a day sanctified in the heavens before it was ever commanded on earth. It is an unbreakable law that marks the covenant's seed. Yet, a dark deception has obscured this sacred rhythm. The modern world has embraced lunar calendar corruption, which shifts the appointed times based on the changing phases of the moon rather than the solar cycle. The Roman Julian calendar shifts, followed by the Gregorian system, further severed humanity from the biblical feast days. Jubilees 6 contains a stark warning. Men will forget the true appointed times, keeping the feasts on unclean days and drifting into spiritual confusion. This calendar drift has hidden the true sanctuary days, making men worship on days of their own making. They have exchanged the solar clock of the angels for the ever-changing moon, blinding their eyes to the covenant order. As we deconstruct this confusion, we must look back to where the sanctuary began. The Garden of Eden itself, the Holy of Holies on earth. Let us see how the first priest walked in that holy sanctuary. The Garden of Eden has long been painted by popular culture as a wild, untamed jungle where two naked people wandered aimlessly. But the Book of Jubilees shatters this simplistic imagery, revealing Eden as holy temple, the first and greatest sanctuary of the living God. It was not a place of chaotic nature, but a highly structured sacred space. By analyzing the sanctuary geography of Eden, we discover that the garden had strict boundaries and degrees of holiness, operating as the cosmic high temple where heaven and earth met. The garden boundary lines were laid out with divine precision, separating the sacred inner sanctuary from the common earth outside. This boundary was so holy that no unclean thing could cross it, establishing the law of purity at the very beginning of creation. When we compare Eden to the tabernacle layout that Moses built centuries later in the wilderness, the architectural blueprint becomes unmistakable. The tabernacle, with its outer court, holy place, and holy of holies, was a direct physical copy of the Eden temple. In this cosmic temple, the land of Eden represents the holy place, while the garden itself stands as the Holy of Holies sanctuary, the dwelling place of the divine presence. The entrance to this sacred garden faced the east, and after man was expelled, the Creator placed the cherubim to guard it. If you describe the sacred eastern gate guardian, you picture a terrifying celestial warrior wielding a flaming sword. Protecting the boundary of the divine presence from uncleanness, the flaming sword was a barrier of light, keeping the way to the tree of life secure from those who had fallen. Let us sit with this profound realization for a moment. If Eden was the original Holy of Holies, then the creation of man was not just the placement of a gardener, but the ordination of a high priest. The garden was designed as a place of divine service, a temple where worship and creation were bound together. By framing the garden as high sanctuary, Jubilees changes how we see the fall of man. It was not just a simple act of eating forbidden fruit, was a sanctuary violation, a defilement of the Holy of Holies by a priest who had failed his guard. This changes everything, because it means our restoration is not just about going to heaven, but about restoring the priestly ministry that was lost. The sanctuary is the key to understanding all of Scripture, pointing us back to the original temple of the Creator. This priestly role of Adam was not a passive one. It involved active daily rituals. He was instructed in the laws of sacrifice and clean offerings, establishing the pattern that the patriarchs would follow. Today, we must reclaim this understanding of our role as priests in God's creation, guarding the sacred spaces in our own lives. Let us look now at how Adam served in this original temple. In this primeval temple, we reconstruct Adam's high priestly duties, discovering that his daily life was defined by liturgical service. He was the first priest, Adam, appointed to guard and keep the garden. According to Jubilees, his ministry included presenting sweet incense offerings to the Lord at the rising and setting of the sun. He collected the sacred spices of the garden, frankincense, galbanum, and stacked, and offered them upon the altar, filling the garden with a fragrant cloud of worship. This daily incense offering was a cosmic service, connecting the earthly temple to the heavenly altar. It was a holy liturgy that maintained the harmony of creation, showing that man was created to facilitate the communion between the Creator and the earth. Every action of Adam was coded with priestly significance, from his steps in the garden to his quiet prayers. But when sin entered, the glory was stripped away and the sanctuary was defiled. As he was expelled from the holy place, the Creator in his mercy provided the covering of skin garments. These were not primitive animal skins from slaughtered beasts, but spiritual robes of light, a temporary replacement for the priestly garments Adam had lost. We must address the loss of priestly glory that occurred at the fall. The robes of light faded, leaving man in physical garments of skin, a physical reminder of his exile from the sanctuary. Yet, the memory of this priestly service remained, passed down through the line of Seth to Noah and eventually to Abraham, who recognized his priestly calling. It was a thread of redemption running through the generations. This sanctuary, however, was not isolated, was part of a larger geographic alignment of holiness. The Book of Jubilees describes 4 holy mountains that act as the pillars of the earth, aligning the sanctuary spaces of the pre-flood world. These are Eden, the Mount of the East, Mount Sinai, and Mount Zion. If you locate the 4 sacred cosmic pillars, you see a path of divine geography. I encourage you to look at the map and see how Eden connects to the Sinai and Zion sanctuaries. When I traveled near the Sinai Peninsula in 2019, looking at those jagged red peaks rising from the desert sand, I felt the weight of this geographical holiness. We must warn against violating these sacred mountain gates, for they are the keys to the covenant. This is not mere archaeology. It is the physical layout of God's authority on earth. In our next section, we will witness how this holy alignment was attacked by the Watchers who descended on Mount Hermon. They came to disrupt this divine order, bringing corruption to the holy lineage. The descent of these angelic beings changed the course of history, introducing secrets that were never meant for mortal men. We must examine this rebellion to understand the flood that followed. Let us look at what happened on Mount Hermon. We must understand the forces that sought to destroy the Garden Temple. I must admit my own struggle with the Watcher's mystery when I first began studying these extra-canonical texts. It is a narrative that sounds more like modern science fiction than standard theology. Yet, the Book of Jubilees documents the Watcher's descent not as a myth, but as a sober historical reality that took place in the days of Jared. These were not demons rising from the underworld, but holy angels of God who were originally sent to earth to instruct mankind in righteousness and justice. However, their mission became corrupted when they gazed upon the daughters of men and coveted their beauty. It was a failure of cosmic proportions, showing that even the highest created beings are subject to the laws of order and boundaries. When they stepped outside their assigned domain, they unlocked a door that could not be easily shut again. To understand how this fall happened, we must picture these angels crossing dimensional gates, transitioning from the spiritual realm of light into the dense physical reality of our world. As they materialized on the snow-capped peak of Mount Hermon, they took a step of no return. Bound by their lust and ambition, they swore the Mount Hermon oath, tying their destinies together in a pact of rebellion. This oath was a solemn vow to violate the divine order, ensuring that no single angel could back out of the plan. It was the moment where their role as instructors was abandoned, and their path as corruptors began. They chose to trade their eternal inheritance in the heavens for a passing season of fleshly dominion on earth, sealing their fate in the mountain snow. This was a major corruption of the covenant that governed the boundaries between heaven and earth. By taking human wives and attempting to merge celestial genetics with physical flesh, the Watchers threw the entire creation into chaos. We must frame this as a cosmic rebellion, an attempt to build a rival kingdom on earth using forbidden celestial knowledge. It was a direct challenge to the sovereignty of the Creator, introducing a sickness into the human lineage that could only be cleansed by the flood. As we sit with this dark chapter of history, we realize that the scars of Hermon still echo in the systems of our world today. The knowledge they brought did not elevate humanity, it enslaved them. This rebellion led to the birth of the giant hybrids, creatures of pure appetite and violence who laid waste to the earth. In the next section, we will see how these giants corrupted the flesh of all living things, and how the Creator finally stepped in to judge them, casting the fallen angels into the dark abyss. The union between the fallen Watchers and human women produced the giant Nephilim line, monsters of immense size and insatiable greed. As these hybrids grew, the earth could no longer sustain their hunger, and they began to turn on humanity and each other in a frenzy of destruction. To paint the rise of giant hybrids is to describe a reign of terror where flesh was consumed and the covenant of life was utterly broken. They dominated the antediluvian world with sheer brute force, turning the garden-aligned earth into a blood-soaked wilderness. No human army could stand against them, and the cries of the oppressed rose to the heavens as these monsters devoured the very resources of the planet, leaving ruin in their wake. This physical violence was fueled by the secrets of metallurgy taught by the fallen angels. They showed men how to mine the earth and forge weapons of iron and bronze, turning farming tools into instruments of war. Along with these weapons, they taught forbidden magic and sorcery, introducing astrology and the cutting of roots to corrupt human minds. This teaching led to a total loss of spiritual sight, as humanity became obsessed with physical power and demonic technologies. The pre-flood violence dominance was complete, leaving no room for the quiet sanctuary worship Adam had practiced. Men forgot the Creator and began to worship the technology and the weapons of their own hands, blind to the spiritual reality. But the cry of the earth reached the heavens, and the Creator ordered the abyss binding of the rebellious angels. The archangels were sent to execute the divine decree, binding the Watchers in chains of darkness beneath the hills of the earth. Where they await the final day of judgment, we watch the judgment of the giants as they were set against each other in a war of mutual destruction, their giant bodies falling like collapsed stone pillars. Yet, even after their physical bodies perished, a remnant of evil spirits remained to plague humanity. I recall reading in the GS text how Mastema, the Prince of Spirits, petitioned God to keep 1/10 of these spirits to test humanity, while the rest were bound in the abyss. This warning remains for us today. The spirits of the giants are still active, seeking to corrupt the righteous lineage. In our next section, we will see how Noah divided the earth to protect the covenant seed. The division of the earth was a sacred boundary line designed to separate the nations and protect the lineage of Shem from the corruption of the other lines. It was a geographic covenant that Noah swore before his death, hoping to keep his children from repeating the sins of the pre-flood world. Let us look at how the earth was partitioned. We must understand the boundaries that Noah established to guard his family. After the waters of the flood receded and the earth was cleansed, a new order had to be established to prevent the nations from clashing. Noah gathered his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, to distribute the earth through the Noah partition decree. This was not a political negotiation or a random drawing of lines, but a sacred ritual involving the casting lot of lands before the presence of the Creator. Noah drew 3 lots from his bosom, dividing the planet into 3 divisions of earth, each assigned to one of his sons and their descendants. This act of division was sealed with a terrible oath. Anyone who attempted to seize another's portion would be destroyed by fire and cursed forever. It was a covenant of geography, establishing the bounds of human habitation under divine law. Contrast this divine partition with secular map-making, which treats borders as temporary lines drawn by human conquest and military power. The Book of Jubilees reveals that the divisions of the earth are eternal, cosmic boundaries established by God Himself. When we look at modern border conflicts through the lens of Scripture, we see a history of rebellion against this original layout. Human empires have spent centuries redrawing maps to suit their greed, but the Creator's boundaries remain written in the heavenly archives. By detailing the oath of division sworn by Noah's sons, the text censures all modern land grabs as violations of a sacred treaty, warning that stolen land carries a heavy curse. It reminds us that God has determined the times and the bounds of our dwellings, and to violate them is to invite judgment. We begin our geographical study by tracing the portion of Shem, which was drawn as the first and most holy lot. His inheritance covered the Middle East, extending from the mountain of the east to the sea, a land of warmth and abundance. The geography of this lot reveals Shem's land as the spiritual center of the world, containing the Eden Sanctuary Center, Mount Sinai, and Mount Zion. This was a covenant soil allotment designed for the lineage that would carry the priesthood and the sacred language. The text emphasizes that Shem's portion is uniquely blessed with fertility and peace because it houses the sanctuaries of God. It was a holy land for a holy people, warning that the covenant seed must remain within their assigned borders, guarding the soil that had been sanctified for them. They were not to covet the lands of Ham or Japheth, but to guard the Holy of Holies. This sacred division of Shem's land was designed to keep the priesthood pure and separate from the nations. But the boundaries of the other brothers were also holy in their own right, matching their destinies. Let us look now at the portion of Ham in the hot lands of the south, where his descendants built mighty empires. Let us examine how Ham's lands were defined by the same divine decree, establishing the royal borders of Cush and Mizraim. We must understand the geography of our ancestors. We now sit with Ham's vast African boundaries, a territory defined by warmth, wealth, and immense geographic scope. According to the lottery, the portion of Ham fell to the south of the earth, encompassing the lands of Cush and Mizraim, extending all the way to the hot regions of the Nile Valley. This was not a barren desert of isolation, but a rich, fertile land blessed with gold, ivory, and the rich Nile Valley soil that nourished the first great civilizations. It was an inheritance of majesty and power, designed for the Hamitic nations to build their great cities and kingdoms under the blessing of the Creator. By restoring these royal African map borders, the GES text of Jubilees dismantles European boundary distortions that have long sought to diminish the historical heritage of Africa, proving that these lands were assigned by divine decree. Yet, this sacred geography was quickly violated by rebellion. Canaan, the son of Ham, looked at the land assigned to him in the hot south and refused to settle there. Instead, he looked north at the fertile Levant, the portion of Shem, and decided to launch a Canaan illegal invasion. Despite the warnings of his father Ham and his brothers, who reminded him of the oath sworn before Noah, Canaan seized the Lebanon portion stolen from Shem's allotment, establishing his kingdom in a land that did not belong to him. This act of theft brought about the judgment of stolen land, a curse that would echo through the generations. Canaan's refusal to stay within his boundary explains the conflicts that later arose when Israel returned to reclaim their covenant soil. It shows that the conquest of Canaan was not a random act of ethnic aggression, but the execution of an ancient judgment. This illegal occupation created a spiritual imbalance on the earth, as holy soil was ruled by an unauthorized lineage that brought false worship to the sanctuaries. Canaan knew he was violating the oath sworn by his fathers, yet his greed drove him to ignore the covenant. By tracing this history, the Book of Jubilees provides the legal background for the biblical narrative, showing that every conflict in the Promised Land was rooted in this initial theft. It was a breach of cosmic contract that could only be resolved by the return of the rightful heirs. As we reflect on this stolen inheritance, we see how the restoration of the calendar and the law is bound up with the restoration of the land itself. It is about reclaiming what was stolen, not just spiritually, but physically. The covenant people must know their history to understand their future inheritance, rejecting the lies of the modern world. These feasts were not merely cultural celebrations, but cosmic resets, designed to keep the covenant seed in alignment with the heavenly calendar. They were keys to keeping the land holy, ensuring that the curses of the nations would not take root in the soil of Shem. Let us look at how these feasts were established by Noah. We must understand how these appointed cycles protect the righteous lineage from the systems of darkness. I invite you to check our dates and open the text of Jubilees for yourself, because what we are about to uncover changes how we see the biblical festivals. The Feast of Weeks, Shavuot, is often understood simply as a commemoration of the giving of the law at Sinai, or a harvest festival, but the Book of Jubilees reveals that this holy day's roots go back much further, originating in the heavens before the creation of the earth. It was established as the day of covenant renewal, the exact day on which the Creator made his covenant with Noah after the flood, sealed with the covenant of the rainbow. It was a promise that the earth would never again be destroyed by water, a vow that is renewed every single year on this exact date. Noah's rainbow was not just a beautiful sight in the sky. It was a physical sign of an eternal covenant, sworn on the 15th day of the third month, the exact day of Shavuot. This feast was designed for the annual renewal of cosmic vows between the Creator and all creation. Every year, on this appointed day, the angels and the righteous lineage renew their oath to keep the commandments and walk in truth. The Book of Jubilees shows that when we celebrate Shavuot, we are not just observing a historical event, but participating in the continuous renewal of the covenant that keeps the earth from being destroyed. To skip this feast, or to celebrate it on the wrong day, is to step outside the protective seal of the covenant, drifting into the spiritual chaos of the nations. This covenant renewal was accompanied by strict laws, most notably the covenant of blood. Noah was given a solemn commandment concerning the sacredness of the life force, which resides in the blood of all living creatures. We must explain the heavy prohibition on eating blood that runs from Noah to Moses and into the New Testament. The blood represents the life, and to consume it is to violate the boundary of life itself. The commandment of Noah was clear: blood must be poured out on the earth and covered with dust, never consumed by man. This law was not a temporary ceremonial rule for one nation, but an eternal spiritual boundary of blood, designed to keep the lineage clean and sanctified. In the wilderness, Moses enforced these covenant hygiene rules to protect Israel from the sickness of the nations, ensuring their physical and spiritual survival. This boundary of blood was the foundation for all subsequent sacrifices and priesthood laws, keeping the righteous lineage pure. By guarding the blood, the patriarchs guarded their life force, keeping themselves aligned with the heavenly courts. Let us look now at how Abraham celebrated the next great festival, the Feast of Booths, in the land of Canaan. We must understand how Abraham lived in booths, celebrating the harvest in the 7th month, and how this feast connects to our modern spiritual walk. The history is written in the Ge'ez text. I must admit my own past ritual confusion when it came to the origin of the Feast of Tabernacles booths. I had always assumed it began in the wilderness with Moses, but the Book of Jubilees reveals a profound chronicle. Abraham was the first to celebrate this feast, doing so at Beersheba centuries before Moses was born. Abraham celebrated the booths in the 7th month, constructing temporary shelters from the branches of palm trees, olives, and willows, praising the Creator for the harvest and the protection of his seed. This Feast of Tabernacles booths was an expression of deep gratitude, a celebration of the covenant lineage that had been preserved through many trials and exiles. It was a physical testimony that his inheritance was not in the cities of men, but in the presence of God. This historical celebration shows that the feasts are not temporary laws for one nation, but eternal structures of worship. Abraham celebrated for 7 days, placing crowns of olive and palm branches on his head, offering sacrifices upon the altar, and rejoicing before the Lord. This was covenant roots hidden in plain sight, a pattern of worship that linked Abraham's daily life to the cosmic calendar. By celebrating the booths, Abraham was not just enjoying a harvest festival. He was setting a pattern of faith and separation from the surrounding pagan nations, declaring his dependence on the Creator. It was a sign of the covenant seed's separation from the systems of the world, a liturgical wall that kept them holy. They were to teach this pattern to their children's children. But there is a warning attached to these feast days. The Book of Jubilees describes the judgment of nations who reject the appointed cycles. When the nations turned away from the Creator, they fell into the rebellion of Gentile ways. Abandoning the solar calendar for lunar cycles of confusion, this destruction of time order led to spiritual chaos as they began keeping holy days on unclean dates, confusing the seasons and the Sabbaths. The warning for us is clear. To abandon the Creator's calendar is to slide into pagan confusion, losing our connection to the divine appointments. This is the judgment of cycles, where those who choose their own times are left to wander in darkness, unable to find the way back to the sanctuary. They have traded the eternal clock for the changing moon, and their minds have become darkened. This confusion was designed to blind the nations, but the righteous lineage was given a shield. Abraham's descendants were instructed in the sacred language and the laws of protection, keeping them safe from the petitions of Mastema and the plagues of the nations. Let us look at how the sacred tongue was restored to Abraham and how the angel of the presence guarded his seed from the cosmic accuser. We must understand the shielding of the righteous line and the secrets of the Hebrew language that were restored in the wilderness. The Ge'ez manuscript preserves these keys for the end-time awakening of the covenant people. The loss of the sacred Hebrew tongue at the Tower of Babel was not just a change of words, but a deep spiritual separation. Before the rebellion of Nimrod, all humanity spoke the original language of creation, the tongue in which the Creator spoke light into existence. But when the languages were confused, the sacred Hebrew tongue was withdrawn from the earth, hidden away in the heavenly vaults to prevent its defilement by pagan nations. For generations, humanity spoke in fragmented earthly languages, cut off from the original vocal frequency of the sanctuaries, unable to hear the voice of God in its pure form. This confusion was a spiritual lock, keeping the deep mysteries of creation sealed until the appointed hour of restoration. But the Creator had a plan of restoration, which began when the angel of the presence was commanded to teach Abraham. While Abraham was still in Haran, the angel opened his mouth and began the angel teaching Abraham process, restoring the ancient speech that had been lost for centuries. This was not a quick lesson in grammar, but a deep spiritual download of the language of creation. I remember sitting in my first Hebrew class in 2017, struggling to read the blocky characters from right to left and feeling a strange, ancient familiarity. It was the same feeling Abraham must have felt as his tongue aligned with the celestial order. It was the moment where he ceased to speak the language of his fathers and began to speak the language of the angels, linking him directly to the throne. This restoration of ancient speech was designed to restore the sacred language to the seed of the covenant, enabling them to read the heavenly tablets and speak the words of creation. By reclaiming this tongue, Abraham was separated from the surrounding nations, his mind aligned with the thoughts of the Creator. It was a liturgical wall of protection, ensuring that the prayers of the righteous lineage would echo in the same frequency as the heavenly courts. This sacred language was passed down to Isaac and Jacob, keeping the seed holy and distinct from the nations, safeguarding the covenant vows through time. They carried the key to the archives, a holy speech that could not be polluted by pagan ways. This language was a powerful shield, but the righteous lineage also faced direct attacks in the spiritual realm. The cosmic accuser sought to destroy them through legal accusations in the heavenly courts. We must examine this spiritual warfare to understand the protection that surrounds the seed. Let us look at how the angel of the presence stood as a bodyguard against the forces of darkness. But this restoration was met with intense cosmic hostility in the spiritual realm. The Book of Jubilees introduces the Prince of Hostility, Mastema the accuser, who stands as the prosecuting attorney in the heavenly courts, seeking to condemn the righteous. Mastema sought to destroy Abraham and his seed, launching legal petitions against them before the throne of glory, accusing them of unfaithfulness and demanding their destruction. These courtroom battles in heaven were real and constant, a spiritual warfare that determined the physical survival of the patriarchs on earth. Mastema argued that humanity was corrupt and that Abraham's descendants would fail, petitioning the Creator to hand them over to his power of darkness. Yet, Abraham was not left without defense. The angel of presence defense was absolute, standing between the accuser and the righteous seed. Whenever Mastema presented his legal claims, the good angels intervened, presenting Abraham's obedience and faith as legal evidence of his righteousness. These cosmic bodyguards guarded Abraham during the testing of Isaac and during his journeys, neutralizing the accusations of the enemy. This shows that the righteous lineage is protected by a spiritual legal team, an unseen shield that defeats the plans of the Prince of Hostility. It is a reminder that the battle is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. Where our defense is already secured, let us sit with this profound protective seal for a moment. The mark of the covenant was not merely a physical sign in the flesh, but a spiritual shield that granted legal immunity from the forces of darkness. It brought protection from plague and destruction, ensuring that the plagues sent to punish the wicked would not touch the righteous. This mark represents the unbreakable seed lineage, a bloodline that is legally protected by the divine decree. No matter how many times Mastema petitioned for their destruction, the covenant seal stood firm. This is our security today, knowing that our inheritance is sealed in the heavens, protected from the accuser. The seed is eternal, and the promise cannot be broken by any earthly system. This protection was not just for the past, but is active for the end-time awakening of the covenant people. In the final section, we will see how the solar calendar and the law are restored to the righteous, leading them into their ultimate prophetic destiny. Let us examine the final restoration of the covenant people. As we look at the state of the world today, we see the signs of an end-time awakening, a great shaking where the hidden things are being brought to light. The return of the Mashafa Kufale truth is a key part of this awakening, restoring the knowledge of the origins that was locked away for centuries. By restoring the solar calendar restoration, the Creator is calling His people back to the original rhythm of the heavens, aligning them with the angelic courts and the cosmic order. We must censure the modern system of calendar confusion, which has blinded the world through artificial dates and shifting Sabbaths. The Gregorian and lunar systems have cut humanity off from the appointed times of the Creator, keeping them in a state of spiritual drift. But the GES text of Jubilees promises the triumph of the righteous, assuring us that the holy seed will reclaim their inheritance and walk in the light of the original calendar. The systems of deception are crumbling, and the truth is rising to seal the covenant people. I framed this video as a film of restoration, a cinematic effort to bring these suppressed truths back to the body of believers. This is not about speculation or division, but about honor and visibility for the lineage that Hollywood and Western canons erased. As we stand on the brink of this great restoration, we invite you to walk with us in this truth, keeping the covenant and guarding the sacred times. The light is shining in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. These are reflections from where I stand. I'm walking this same road you're walking. Take what serves you, leave what doesn't. Before we close, let us seal this deep truth with a heartfelt prayer of blessing. Father, thank you for revealing the hidden archives of creation and the true solar calendar of your angels. Protect the truth seekers, awaken those still in darkness, and bring divine vindication to your righteous lineage. Bless every viewer with strength, peace, and spiritual discernment in this hour of awakening. Amen. Now, I invite you to subscribe to Chronicles of the Word right now, because our journey into the suppressed scriptures has only just begun, and the next film will go even deeper into the mysteries of the Fathers. If this restoration of Jubilees opened your eyes today, leave a comment below with the keyword "watched," letting us see how many witnesses have gathered to reclaim their heritage. Share this film with someone who needs to wake up and stand in their true identity. Our dedication to cinematic truth remains absolute, and we will continue to film the stories they tried to edit out, restoring the names and the verses omitted from the Western canon. As you leave this premiere, remember the covenant that was written on the heavenly tablets before time began. Walk in that authority, keep the appointed Sabbaths, and stand firm against the accuser. Walk in truth. You are free. We now conclude with our standard voiceover disclaimer read aloud.